Hey, I've been in your shoes, APs, SAT 2s, A's and B's, just please don't let me fail. Ooh, which school should I go to, UCs or CSUs? Oh, UCs or CSUs, can't deal, hashtag struggle is real. I know I must behave and avoid all mistakes. Can I please have some room just to grow? With all the expectations, college conversations, just a kid still 16, hold up, can you slow your roll? What if we're ordinary people and we don't know which way to go? 'Cause we're just ordinary people. Maybe we should take it slow. Let me know. Can you just let me know? Let me know. Can you just let me know? So growing up in the South Bay, very much facing the same kind of high school pressures as you all felt and Ankit shared earlier, I think a lot of things I just wanted people to tell me what I needed to do, right? How do I succeed so that I can please my parents? How do I succeed so I can look cool and be respected by others? And honestly, right now where I'm at, I haven't figured that out right yet. I'm still going through it. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure why I'm up here again back this year. But I am, and I'm very honored and thankful to have this chance to speak with you all. And I'm thinking about well, what do I have to share? What is something that might be of worth to you all to face? And I think as I think back on my childhood and what I've seen growing up, one thing that's been very common and consistent throughout my life is that I've always been pretty happy. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been really smiley, and even growing up, still now I'm very optimistic, and people often wonder and ask how I'm able to stay so optimistic and happy and smiley along the way. And a lot of the answer, I think, comes from who kind of raised me and who gave me opportunities and the privileges to experience all that I've experienced. I don't think I've accomplished very much yet in my life, but I do think I've experienced a wide range of things. And so this is a picture of my family. This was March 2013, when my brother had just gotten married, and my parents, who had moved back to Taiwan, came back for the wedding. This was also the last time that my mom was healthy. So it was March 2013, the wedding happened, and it was a beautiful ceremony. They went back to Taiwan, and my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4, in May in 2013, and she passed away in November. And that experience, and it's been a year and a half since she's passed, has been really challenging, right? It's taken a huge toll on our family, and it's been really hard for me to sometimes keep that same smile throughout. But at the same time, I've also learned that happiness and joy isn't really just always about smiles. And I've learned that joy and sorrow are often very inextricably tied together. And one thing I remember very distinctly, when I was 18 and I graduated high school, when I was 22, graduated college, and when I found out that my mom was sick, was that I felt extreme gratitude. And I felt a lot of thankfulness for the full life that I've already been able to live. And I remember distinctly thinking, if I died right now at 18, 22, 24, I'd be okay with it. Of course I want to keep living, but I'd be okay with it. And I think when I tell that to my friends, sometimes they're very surprised or shocked by that. And I guess that's kind of a strange, weird thing to feel sometimes at a young age. But that's what I felt, and I hope that that's an attitude that I can hopefully share with you and give you some concrete practices and things to go forward with. So everything I share today, it's not really from what I've accomplished, it's really from the people that have sowed into me and sacrificed and loved me, my teachers, coaches, my family, and my friends. So I wanted to honor them first and recognize that, because this is definitely not from what I've done by myself. So today's talk is really inspired by this guy, Jimmy Valvano. He's a famous college basketball coach. He coached NC State, and he passed away in 1993, but he's really well known for his passion. When they won the national title, he ran around all over the court and was looking for a player to hug, and he just looked really funny. But he was diagnosed with cancer as well, and at the ESPYs, which is kind of like the Oscars for sports for ESPN, he delivered a speech before he was about to pass away. And he really stood for a lot of living life fully. And he said, you have to have an enthusiasm for life. You have to have a dream, a goal, and you have to be willing to work for it. And I think with all the people that spoke earlier today in session 1 and session 2, you'll see that you'll hear a lot about their accomplishments, but you don't get to see as much of the day-to-day sacrifices and work that it takes to accomplish something great, and the kind of community and support that it takes from family and colleagues for something amazing to happen, right? And so remembering that all these things that you see us up here and we look like really put together and we have things figured out, one, like we don't, or at least I don't, and two, it takes a lot of day-to-day work. So the stuff that you're facing day-to-day, sometimes you're not always passionate and inspired when you go to school. That's pretty normal, but at least having a direction of where you want to go and what you want to affect, who you want to impact, I think that's crucial along the way to motivate you to wake up every day and still feel like what you're doing has some meaning to it. And so one of the things he said in that speech that stay with me is, every day we should try to live for 3 things. If every day you, number 1, laugh, number 2, think, reflect, be thoughtful, and number 3, have your emotions move to tears. Be moved with emotion. Like if you do those 3 things every single day, that's a full day, he said. And if you do that 7 days a week, that's a full life. Think of what your life would be like if you experienced those 3 things every single day and you made it intentional to experience that. Right? I think so many times we go through our day, and I ask students all the time, like, how was your day? How was your week? What are you looking forward to? And it's always like, I'm so stressed. Like, I have tests coming up. There's just too much homework, right? But are there ways that we can look at things differently to kind of change that narrative? So my moonshot, right, a lot of times we think about dreams and external things, right? What can you accomplish with your life? What is your legacy? What will people see and remember about you on the outside? But I think to get there, you have to start with the inside, right? Starting with the internal. And so what if we could live every single day with meaning, right? And that doesn't mean always being happy. That doesn't mean everything always goes well. But to live with meaning in that you appreciate the things around you and what is happening around you, the love that you see happening, the positive things that are happening. And also recognizing that when things go badly, that doesn't mean that everything is bad. Like those things are necessary sometimes, right? That sorrow is necessary for us to experience and appreciate that joy later on. So my goal is that you leave today, or at least from this talk, with at least one tangible act of intention that you commit to trying. So a lot of times, like I'll watch a TED Talk and I'm like, oh, that was so inspiring, wow. Okay, I'm gonna watch another one. And before you know it, I watched like 10 TED Talks, it's 4 a.m., I have not done my homework, and I don't leave taking anything away. I'm like, oh, I heard all these great ideas, and my life is still the same. All right, so I'm gonna give a lot of different ideas for you, but I'm gonna give you a little time to even think about what is one thing you're gonna do this weekend or this coming week that you're actually gonna change a little bit about your life. Just give it a shot, give it a try. All right? So how I'm gonna go about like living a meaningful life using all our senses, right? So here's kind of the layout, the roadmap, if you will. And the first thing I thought of when I was first asked to give another talk this year was I started documenting things every day that I listened to. It's like, I'm just gonna document one thing from today that was interesting, that moved me, that made me laugh, that made me think, along those lines of Jimmy Valvano. And I'm gonna see what happens, right? And so the first day I decided to do that, it was inspired by this text message. And so this was from one of my friends who had just spent a year teaching in Malaysia for her Fulbright. And she came back and she's been looking for jobs, and she's been struggling. And I asked her how she was doing and how her day was, and she said, today was a big mix. Niece was born, and I rushed over to be here. And then while here, I got my rejection letter from Princeton in Asia. Felt the pains of having no real backup plan, but it's so hard to be sad when you're with a new human in the world who you already know you love. So I cried in the bathroom. But yeah, things just have to move forward. How are you? Graduation's almost here. And it really captured a lot about who this person was and her character and her spirit. I think just like her appreciation for life and the small things in life that matter, but also being open to express emotions. She's a dancer, she's an artist, and I think she's unabashedly unabashedly willing to be herself, right? And I think that to me was like, I want to remember this. So I made like a Google spreadsheet and started documenting. All right, March 30th, I remember this, it was from this person, this is how it made me feel. The next day, I got an email, and this email was from another former colleague. I worked in Boston for a year, and he's a former football player, college football player, and we got along well, but we weren't necessarily that close. But he called me early in March, and he's like, I just wanted to catch up, and he shared with me that he lost his dad in February, and his mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in January. And so he's been really struggling, and he wanted to reach out because he knew that I've been through that process too. And to me, it was this huge blessing. It's like, even though I had to go through that with my family, it allowed me to be there for someone I cared about, right? And so we will talk every month or so and kind of update each other on how we're doing. And this was his email to me. How can someone live knowing that death approaches faster than they imagined? You will no longer shake a hand or feel the embrace of another living human being. For the next days, weeks, months, years, and decades, I will search to find these answers for myself because I know that my time on this earth is limited. But right now, my focus is on my mother's fight. I think that is the appropriate word to find that question. The question of living when death is imminent. Right? And so it really struck me. Recently, a lot more people have been reaching out, and I've been hearing a lot more things just about fighting with cancer and struggling. And initially, I'm like, wow, how are all these things happening? My former Spanish teacher from high school passed away, and he has 2 little girls. He passed away to brain cancer. It just feels so unfair. Another really close friend of mine, her older sister's 27, and this is her second fight with cancer. And to me, I'm like, is it just bad luck and coincidence that all of this is happening right now? But I think I realized that this stuff has always been happening. It's just that I started to notice. I finally started to listen because I've been through it now, right? And so when we go through things that are tough, we start seeing things in different ways. We start noticing things and having empathy for things, and our heart expands, and that capacity to have compassion expands as well. So I think in that sense, sometimes when we go through tough stuff, it can be a blessing in disguise later on for what you can do for others. And so there's a couple other things that I really picked out from the next month or so. There's a poem is a documentary about ethnic studies program in Arizona, and the students in the class would recite this in Spanish and in English every day, and they say, "You are my other me. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. If I love and respect you, I love and respect myself." And it's from this poem. And then I was listening to NPR. There was a town hall thing in Oakland. Talib Kweli, he's a famous hip-hop rapper who also speaks out about social justice issues, and he talks about everything is spiritual, everything is political, especially silence. And I know that for myself as an Asian American male, a lot of times the stereotype is that I'm going to avoid conflict and I'm going to be silent, right? I'm going to focus on success, and things that are going to cause conflict, I'm going to steer clear, right? And I recognize that, that's something I'm working on a lot too. When there's real issues that I care about, I need to speak up or learn more or say something, right? And then finally, there's another TED Talk by Jeff Duncan Andrade. He's an educator in Oakland, and he tells a story about how Tupac and another rapper were fighting back in the day, and Maya Angelou had pulled them apart, and she didn't even know who they really were. And she said to Tupac, who was really angry and really furious, she said, "Do you realize how important you are, right? You need to stop fighting because you are important. We need you, right?" And a tear rolled down his cheek. And just to think about, I see a lot of students. I'm training to be a high school teacher right now, and I see a lot of students where we don't really realize how important we are, right? And what kind of power you could have when you are motivated for something that you really care about. And I often want to tell students that, do you realize how important you are? When you're stressed about all these other things that are going on that aren't actually all that significant, do you realize how important you are? And I think remembering that can be very empowering. So that's my first act of intention that you can try out if you're interested. Document one thing you hear every day. Just one thing. Set time at night to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, what did I hear today? What did I encounter? Let me write that down. And you'll see over the course of a week, you start noticing different things. You start listening with a different kind of intention. You start looking at people and listening to their words in a different way, and you start asking questions that are beyond just "Hey man, what's up? How are you?" And then you have real conversations. So that's my first one for listening. My second one is hear to listen, and this actually has kind of some overlap with what Ankit was talking about earlier. At Berkeley, there's a space called Sproul Plaza where there's a lot of protests and a lot of flyering for different clubs. And a lot of times people try to avoid it because it's so busy, and people are always telling you, oh, you should sign up for this petition, register to vote, and all these different causes, and it's like overwhelming. So people will go on their cell phones, pretend they're on their cell phones so that people won't flyer them. And then I just saw it as a really inefficient space. And so some of my friends and I, we just stood out there, we tried to reverse the script. Instead of telling you what to do and what you should believe and what you should sign up for, we're just gonna stand there and be silent, and we'll say, here to listen. We're just gonna be here to listen. And so the first time I was really scared, and I thought I'd be there for 90 minutes, and I ended up staying for 4 hours because thousands of people ignored me, and I felt really insecure. Like, people are judging me, oh, I'm such a weirdo. But people stopped too, and I had conversations about faith, I had conversations about marriage, I had conversations about education, about civil rights, things like that. And my world was completely opened. I got so much more education and learning out of those 4 hours than I did in 4 hours of class at Berkeley. So I did this more throughout my senior year, and the guy in the middle, I actually met him through this. I was just standing there, he's like, hey, can I join you guys? And then he started coming out every time too. And so I would encourage you as high school students, you could do this on your campus. I've done this now at Berkeley, at Harvard, at Stanford, at Santana Row, wherever you think there's a lot of people and you could try it out, you can kind of flip that script of how you look at people and strangers and what kind of conversations and connections you can make. So that's the second one, here to listen, try it out. 2, tasting. This one will be quick. So tasting, I was talking to a friend, and she talked about how they had a potluck, and they were supposed to bring dishes from their own culture, and so people brought food and everything, and what they did was they discussed what it meant to their family. We eat this because of this, we prepare this in this certain way, and it became this discussion of seeing how food represents a lot about our histories and cultures and our values. And you see how food is actually a representation of history too, from colonized peoples, from intermixing, from things like that. It's really fascinating if you think about where this came from and what it takes for this to happen. A lot of times we take it for granted, the food that comes onto our tables, but there's a lot of meaning behind it. And the other part that I would suggest trying is tasting in silence. So I once went to a Buddhist temple, and we did meditation, and then at lunch, we were eating food, and you're supposed to separate into guys and girls, and it was completely silent. And the food is all all organic, all sustainably produced and cooked in a very healthy way. And you kind of give your thanks, and you sit there and you just eat in silence. And the point is to think about, well, one, you actually start thinking about the texture and the taste and the food and how it's nourishing you. You think about, where did the food come from? Who prepared it? Who put in effort and love to prepare this for me? And where did this, how is this grown? And how is this affecting me? And it became this huge different experience than rather than just me scarfing down the latest bagel bites or chicken bakes from Costco and stuff. It became an experience where I appreciated the nourishment that was coming into my body. And it gave me a different way of looking at health and myself, my body in general. So those are 2 things also that I think you can try to bring more meaning into your life. All right, number 3, feeling. So a lot of times I think we go through life or school especially, and you kind of just go from one desk to another desk. Maybe you do a fist bump, maybe you have a cool handshake with a friend. But apart from that, we don't really, interact in affectionate ways with our family and friends, and they're people we really care about. And so I know for myself, growing up, we never said I love you in our family. It was just not a part of our culture in our family. And it wasn't until 11th grade when one of my closest friends' fathers passed away, and I was at that memorial service, and I vowed that day from now on, I'd always say I love you, even if it was awkward to my mom and dad and to my brother, because I didn't want to go through an experience where I didn't get to say it, where someone would pass away, and I didn't have a chance to say it one last time. So from now on, from then on, I became a lot more open to saying I love you, to hugging people, to kissing my mom and dad on the cheek, holding hands. Even now, I'm dating someone, and whenever we get in an argument, we have a disagreement, instead of, we will not do it over text, email, chat, phone, we'll meet up in person, we'll sit next to each other, hold each other's hands, and we will talk about our disagreement that way. And it's completely address our disagreements and our fights. It's not even a fight anymore. It's like, wait, at the heart of this, like, we love and care about each other, so we're just going to work out this miscommunication. We're not going to get emotions into it because we already know we love and care about each other, right? So this has really shaped the way I speak. Instead of jumping quickly to something like, oh, wait, I love and care about this person. I'm gonna approach it a different way. Number 2, commit to being vulnerable that day. Share something personal with a friend, right? So this is feels in another way. It's not like physical feels, but it's like emotional feels. And you might be surprised how they respond. I think the best way to really get a connection, sometimes you have to take that initiative to be open first. And once you do that, then the doors kind of open for more real conversations. And then finally, the third one, take 5 minutes to write down all the things you appreciate about a person or about a place. Right? So this could be someone that you already love, like that you just don't appreciate enough, like your mom and dad. It could be someone that you really don't like, maybe a teacher or someone at school, and you have to sit and think about what you actually appreciate and the positive qualities about them. Or it could be a place. There's a suggestion at the end of our school year, or end of college, I was at this retreat, and a guy had said, every month, walk around your apartment or your house and just appreciate everything you have. Like, wow, I have running water. Wow, I have a refrigerator and I have like electricity that I don't have to worry about. Wow, like I have carpeted floors, I have heating, all these things that we take for granted. And then all of a sudden, my janky apartment becomes this place of like, wow, this is awesome. I have so many great things. So just taking 5 minutes to do that, I think can be a great thing that affects how you look at each day and how you look at the people and the places around you. And really, I think seeing a lot of those things in the past affect how you, how you think about things are going to affect how you feel and how you see. So I think with the seeing, today I'm going to really notice that person in class who never speaks up, or the person who always gets made fun of, right? I'm going to look at them and focus on how they're feeling and how they're doing instead of just what I want that day. So I kind of want to do this quick thought experiment. So if you could close your eyes just for a minute and kind of imagine with me, I'll guide you through it. All right. So imagine you're waking up. It's a typical weekday morning. You have work or you have school. You wake up and think about how you feel and what you see around you. Your bedroom, your alarm clock, whatever it is. And you're getting ready for your school day. So you're getting breakfast. So you're grabbing whatever it is that you usually do for breakfast. So think about what you see and what you don't see, what you notice and you don't notice. All right, and now it's time to start going to school. So you get in the car, you get in the bus, whatever it is, and you're going through. Do you notice who's driving you? Do you notice the nicely paved roads that are void of bumps and animals maybe on the side? Do you feel comfortable? You have air conditioning and heating. When you come to school and work, what do you take for granted and what do you just, do you walk in and notice your coworker or another student who might have had a really tough night or day, who maybe didn't have food to eat, or are you just focused on what you do have? And so by the end of the day, you're tired and you're exhausted. What is your main focus as you're going home? What do you see and what do you notice? So yeah, you can open your eyes. I appreciate you giving that imagination and thought, and I think everybody's is different, right? Some of you are very observant, and some of you maybe have some work to do in that respect. But I think even doing that and thinking about, wow, my mom, I know for myself, I grew up every morning, my mom prepared like freshly organic pressed fruit smoothies for me, but then sometimes I would get really angry at her because she would put like nuts and spinach and kale in it, and I'd be like, this is disgusting. And then we get in fights about it, and I look back on it, I'm like, I was such a spoiled brat. But there's so much love put into it every single day so that I could feel nourished and be ready for school. And so I think noticing things like that and seeing things in a different way. All right, and then finally, another thing you could try, explore your campus or neighborhood, take a different route, right? A lot of times at school, I'm like, I didn't even realize we had this. And it's like the 4th year of me being at Berkeley. And I was like, oh, wow. It's a different thing where you take a different route home, you see a different kind of person, and that changes up your day. All right. So summary, I actually want you to now think about what's one thing you're going to try this weekend or next week, commit to it, and share it with your neighbor. All right, so 2s or 3s, share one thing you're actually going to try this weekend or this week, and go ahead. I'm going to give you like 20, 30 seconds for that, and then I'm going to start wrapping up this talk. All right. So hopefully you found at least 1 or 2 things you thought you could try out. And I also hope that in the course of these 20 minutes or over the course of the day, that you had some time that you got to laugh a little bit, you got some time that you got to think, be thoughtful and reflective. And I hope, if not from now, that you got some of your emotions moved, but maybe later on. That requires you opening up your heart and your mind to being able to have that experience too. This morning I was watching America's Got Talent YouTube video, and there's a guy who was doing stand-up comedy, but he had a stutter. And his story was really, really compelling. So I already got my crying out of the way this morning, so you got to get on that if you haven't yet. And yeah, so that's kind of the summary. So my last couple of pieces of advice, this one of, at the end of our class, one of my Stanford professors says, be kind and gentle to yourself. He's pretty well known nationally, and he's accomplished many things, but he's also had his own fair struggles with mental health and depression. And he says, at the end of the day, be kind and gentle to yourself. Like everybody here, if you're here at TEDx listening, you want to do good, and you're probably accomplishing great things already, and you will accomplish great things. So there's no question. But a lot of times we kind of forgo a lot of the mental and emotional, physical health that we need to survive and thrive long term. So be kind and gentle to yourself. And some of you might be thinking, wait, you forgot number 5, smelling. But it's like, final piece of advice, number 2, don't take yourself too seriously. Have a good sense of humor. And thank you for listening. I'll smell you later.